Why do you hate African immigrants? Because it seems like Africans are the most hated immigrants all over the world, everywhere. Let's discuss why Africans migrate.
Welcome back to the channel. Why African migrants are hated the most.
Alright, I just want to understand. Alright, I just want to understand. Is it like because they are criminals, like they are stealing jobs, or they are just scapegoated because they are Africans?
The roots of xenophobia and Afrophobia.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Let us talk about it. Xenophobia and Afrophobia are complex social phenomena rooted in historical, economic, political, and cultural factors. So, these forms of prejudice, because it's actually a prejudice, and discrimination manifest in various ways across different regions and communities. Understanding its roots, or their roots, that's xenophobia and Afrophobia, understanding their roots is actually very, very crucial to, to know their impact. So let's dive in.
What is xenophobia? Xenophobia, derived from the Greek words xenos, meaning stranger, and phobos, meaning fear, refers to an extreme dislike or prejudice against people from other countries. It often manifests as fear, distrust, or hatred towards foreigners or anything perceived as foreign. This can lead to a discriminatory behavior and attitude which can have serious social and economic consequences. Afrophobia. Afrophobia refers to the fear, hatred, or dislike of Africans and people of African descent. This term encompasses prejudice, hostility, discrimination, and racism towards African cultures and individuals, both on the continent and within the African diaspora. A little context. Prejudice against Africans dates back to ancient times, but it became more pronounced during the Atlantic slave trade and the colonial period. Africans were often depicted as uncivilized and primitive, justifying their exploitation and enslavement. In the colonial era, during European colonialism, Africans were subjected to severe discrimination and dehumanization. Colonial powers portrayed their conquest as a civilizing mission, further entrenching negative stereotypes. After the abolition of slavery, African descendants continued to face systemic racism and segregation, particularly in the United States and South Africa. The Jim Crow laws in the United States and the Apartheid in South Africa institutionalized racial discrimination. In the early to mid-20th century, many African intellectuals and leaders embraced Pan-Africanism, promoting unity and solidarity among African nations and the diaspora. However, contradictions and local political struggles sometimes led to ignorant attitude and Afrophobia. Afrophobia can manifest in various forms, including social exclusion, economic marginalization, and physical violence. It is distinct from, but can overlap with anti-black racism, which specifically targets black people of African descent. Causes of xenophobia or Afrophobia. Economic factors. Competition for resources. Economic hardship and the perception of scarce resources often fuel xenophobic sentiments. When unemployment rates are high and economic inequality is pronounced, competition for jobs, housing, and social services intensifies.
In this context, migrants, particularly those from neighboring countries, can become scapegoats, can become easy scapegoats, because they believe that migrants are taking opportunities away from citizens, can create a hostile environment and also foster resentment.
For instance, in South Africa, where economic challenges have been persistent, there have been instances of xenophobic violence directed at migrants. This is often fueled by the perception that migrants are responsible for high unemployment rate and are unfairly benefiting from social services. While it's important to acknowledge the complexities of these issues, it's clear that economic factors play a significant role in shaping attitudes towards migrants. Economic exploitation and migrant labor. Migrants are often overrepresented in low-wage, precarious jobs, a situation that can exacerbate tensions with the local population. These workers frequently face exploitative conditions including long hours, low pay, and a lack of labor protections. This economic exploitation can lead to resentment among local workers who perceive migrants as undermining wages and working conditions.
These people, they work for 80 rand a day, 90 rand a day. It's fine for them because when you go to his country, it's a lot of money. But for us, is too small. So we are no longer getting jobs anymore because of the salary we're looking for. You understand? These people, they are accepting small money. So they are ruining us in each and every side of ours. We attack them with knives, everything, machetes, man, because we are very, very angry because we can't accept that.
The competition for low-skilled jobs coupled with the vulnerability of migrant workers can create a circle of exploitation and social tension. Political factors. Political rhetoric. The exploitation of xenophobic sentiments for political gain has become a concerning trend. Politicians and political groups often employ divisive rhetoric to mobilize, support, and deflect attention from pressing domestic issues. By portraying migrants as criminals, economic burdens, or threats to national identity, these actors can stimulate a particular segment of the population. For instance, in Italy, former Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini has made numerous statements targeting African migrants, often portraying them as a threat to Italian society and security. In South Africa, political rhetoric has also contributed to Afrophobic violence. During the presidency of Jacob Zuma, some political leaders and parties used xenophobic rhetoric to blame African migrants for economic and social issues, leading to violent attacks against foreign nationals. Movements like Operation Dudula in South Africa have also effectively capitalized on economic anxieties and social divisions by scapegoating migrants for the country's problems. This kind of rhetoric can create a toxic environment where intolerance and violence against migrants become normalized. Historical context. Historical events and policies can have a lasting impact on societal attitude toward migrants. In the case of South Africa, the legacy of apartheid continues to shape perceptions of difference and inequality. The forced displacement of Black South Africans during apartheid and the subsequent struggle for land and resources have created a complex and often tense social fabric. These historical wounds, combined with ongoing socio-economic challenges, can make it easier to blame migrants for the country's problems rather than addressing the root causes of inequality and underdevelopment. Social and cultural factors. Cultural differences and xenophobia. Cultural differences, while enriching, can also be a source of misunderstandings and tension. Variations in language, religion, and customs can create a sense of otherness, leading to fear and mistrust. When there is limited interaction and understandings between different communities, stereotypes and prejudices can flourish. This lack of integration can exacerbate existing social divisions and contribute to xenophobic attitudes. Stereotypes, prejudices, and Afrophobia. Negative stereotypes and prejudices about specific groups are potent drivers of xenophobia. These generalizations, often based on misinformation or ignorance, can shape public opinion and lead to discrimination. African migrants in particular have been subjected to harmful stereotypes that portray them as uneducated, criminals, or a burden on host societies. These preconceived notions can fuel Afrophobia. Such stereotypes can hinder integration, limit opportunities, and contribute to a hostile environment for African migrants. Fear of the unknown. Xenophobic attitudes are often rooted in a deep-seated fear of the unfamiliar. When people encounter cultures, languages, and customs different from their own, they may experience a sense of unease or discomfort. Scapegoating. During times of economic hardship or social upheaval, migrants are often scapegoated for broader societal problems. Blaming migrants for these problems can provide a sense of relief and target for anger and frustration. Scapegoating can lead to increased hostility and violence against migrant communities as they become symbols of perceived problems facing society. For instance, in South Africa, African migrants from countries like Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and Somalia have often been blamed for various socio-economic issues, such as unemployment and crime. This scapegoating has led to violent attacks against these migrants, resulting in death, injuries, and displacement. The role of social media. Social media platforms have become powerful tools for both connecting people and spreading misinformation. In the context of migration, these platforms can be used to amplify xenophobic narratives and hatred. Rapid dissemination of misinformation. Social media allows for the rapid and widespread dissemination of false or misleading information about migrants. This can include fabricated stories, manipulated images, or exaggerated statistics. Such content can contribute to a formation of negative stereotypes and prejudices, fostering fear and mistrust of migrant communities. Echo chambers and polarization. Social media algorithms often create echo chambers, where users are primarily exposed to information that reinforces their existing beliefs. For instance, during the Brexit campaign in Britain, social media platforms were flooded with misleading information about migrants, including those from Africa. False claims about migrants taking jobs and resources from British citizens were widely shared, fueling xenophobic sentiments. This can lead to the polarization of opinions and the deepening of divisions between different groups. Xenophobic or Afrophobic views can be amplified within these echo chambers, as users are constantly exposed to similar perspectives and are less likely to encounter counter-arguments. Online harassment and hate speech. Social media platforms have become breeding grounds for online harassment and hate speech directed at migrants. Hateful comments, threats, and discriminatory language can create a toxic environment for migrant communities, both online and offline. Facts. This can deter migrants from speaking out against discrimination and limit their participation in public life. It is important to note that social media can also be a platform for promoting intercultural understanding and challenging xenophobic narratives. However, the potential for misuse and the rapid spread of misinformation makes it a complex and challenging environment to navigate.